Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Belzer from Austin B Media. Today I have the composer for The Dreamlife of Georgie Stone, Amit Cohen. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. A little busy, like I said before. It's been it's been a week. It has been a couple. Well, actually, a couple weeks because I've actually been doing Tribeca coverage for 2, 3 weeks by this
Oh,
time.
wow. So you
Yeah.
started before the festival and you're going through the whole festival.
Yeah, I think my first interview was about 2 or 3 days before the festival.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Who did
It
you
was
interview?
a, it was a You Can Live Forever with the directors of that.
Nice.
Um,
Awesome.
I think directors. At this point, my brain is mush. I don't
Yeah.
even know what time is anymore. Anyways,
Mm.
um, so the Dream Life of Georgie Stone, for anyone who wants to catch it if you're in New York, it's playing at the Angelica on June 16th at 5 p.m. And thankfully, it's been picked up by Netflix. So if you can't check it there at Tribeca, you can catch it on Netflix later.
All right.
Maybe
Yeah.
this year, maybe next year. I don't know yet. I'll have to ask them. But yeah. Anyways, welcome. It's not often I have a composer here.
All right.
Usually it's just maybe an editor, maybe a
Mhm.
director, maybe something like that, or a producer.
Okay.
Um, but let's just get into it. So, for those who aren't familiar with the subject, Georgie Stone, who is she?
So, Georgie Stone is an Australian transgender teen who became an activist, and she helped change laws in Australia to help other transgender children. And the film is told through memories over 19 years. So you get to see her as a child and as she's growing into an adult.
Yeah, and I think we don't really often get just docu shorts that are just spanning so much of time.
Hmm.
So that's kind of intriguing,
Yeah.
um, es- especially considering I just reviewed the JLo documentary Halftime, which
Hmm.
spans probably about 33 years or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. I haven't seen it actually. That sounds really cool.
Maybe wait. I mean, if you're expecting like a huge volume, maybe
Hmm.
watch it. But I don't know. The editing really didn't. It really killed it for me. Was the
Okay.
editing? Um,
Interesting.
Makes it non-linear. But
Mm.
talking about Georgie Stone, what was your approach to composing the score?
Actually, we had a very non-traditional approach. Maya Newell, the director, requested that I would use instruments that don't sound like instruments, which
Hmm.
is a very vague request, right?
Yeah.
So then I had to figure out what does that mean. So I feel like I sort of went on a journey there with trying to manipulate instruments like a piano that I added a lot of effects on it and made it sound like it's broken.
Mhm.
And one of the instruments that I actually ended up creating was a bicycles. I used bicycles, either metal sticks and wood sticks on the spokes while they're spinning,
Mhm.
or the chains. And then I recorded all of that and started manipulating the audio. So it became very like atmospheric texture that was trying to describe a thought being formed.
Mhm.
Also, the film itself is told in a non-linear way, so we are always seeing like flashbacks. So my thought was we need a basis of the music that would sound like subconscious. And the first thing that came up to my mind is let's put a white noise and a sound of an old dusty gramophone. So it sounds like as if we're just going back in time and we're just
Oh.
like diving into somebody's brain, you know? So that's those three sounds are the bicycles and the subconscious sounds. They appear in every single track. It's a 30 minute film. I think we have like 20 minutes of music. But we also wanted to make it very personal. So we ended up recording Georgie with percussion, like body percussion. So there's a track that is like really groovy. And I asked her to do a lot of like mouth noises and like tap on like, her chest and cheeks. And then we recorded that over Zoom. She sent me the files and then I put them in my music. So that's just something nice, like personal element that we put throughout. So yeah, that was cool.
And I couldn't even imagine trying to record music through Zoom because like I already have like trouble, like for example, to give some insight to people who don't record on Zoom. When I put this through a editing software, maybe DaVinci is what I use for video editing, and then Studio One from PreSonus is what I use for audio editing. I have to physically say, no, I get you're seeing this as a mono track, make it a stereo track anyway.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing. I mean, even with like high fidelity, I forget what they call it, high fidelity music mode or something like that. Turned on. Yeah.
So I didn't like record the Zoom call itself. She had a what is it called? She had a some sort of a recorder machine. I forget the word, like a Zoom recorder, but it's not the Zoom the app. There's like the machine called Zoom, and there's the Zoom the app. So, so she recorded the files and then sent me them separately. But over Zoom call, I instructed her, which was super fun because it's like after you work on a film for so long and then you get to meet the people you work on the film, you feel like you know them really well. So to me, that was extremely awesome to just get to work with her.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I totally get the confusion because with the actual recorder, because literally I was looking up, hey, why isn't this happening on Zoom? And I'll type in Zoom recording and it would give me the actual recorder. I'm like, no, that's not what
Yeah. Nice.
So getting back to the music, what made you want to compose the music for the short?
Well, I knew Maya already from her previous project, In My Bloody Trunks. That was a feature film about Aboriginal children in Australia that was nominated for Australian Academy Awards. I was an additional composer on that. And Maya and I got to know each other through the Skywalker Ranch. We met at the Sundance Music and Sound Design Lab where they teamed us up and we stayed at Skywalker Ranch. That's how we formed our work and friendship relationship. And then I worked with her as an additional for the In My Bloody Throne movie. And then she asked me to write the music for this short, The Dreamlife of Georgie Stone. And I just honestly love working with Maya because she's such a great collaborator and she has such an interesting approach for filmmaking and especially for sound and music that I didn't even need to know what the film is about to say yes, but she also sent me the proof of concept and I was just so blown away by the idea that she had for the film and the story itself. It's just such a beautiful story. So there was no way to say no,
No. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You talked earlier about inventing instruments. And maybe this is just because I recently bought Dune on iTunes. It was like $8.
Okay.
But I'm always interested in the idea of inventing instruments because I don't know if you watched Hans Zimmer talk about creating some of those sounds it was interesting. But when I hear you talk about inventing instruments, it immediately piques my curiosity.
Mm,
Just because I'm like, okay, because whenever I talk about a score or music in a um, short documentary or what have you, I'm
mhm.
thinking, okay, is this like string based? Is this synth based?
Yeah.
I go to the bases. Um, it it stunned. I think even in my Dune review, I think I said something along the lines of like it's like a didgeridoo, and that actually
Mhm.
turned out being right.
Nice.
That it was a didgeridoo or something like that, and created all these weird, wonderful instruments.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to. I just think that's fascinating. There's no
Thank you.
question there. That's just fascinating.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think it's really nice to add a layer of something you invent or manipulate to your music because I feel like it brings something new and
Mhm.
a layer of originality or a piece of yourself. Um, and in general, even if there is no budget for an orchestra or something, and you have to record everything on the computer we call it in the box.
Mhm.
I just like grabbing an instrument, an analog instrument to record on myself by myself because it just adds a warmth, some warmth quality to the music that I feel is very important, at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about adding your voice. I believe you said.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, I I can't remember what I was reviewing, but I was literally one of my things was I think it was Halo or Candy, whichever
Cool.
one of those.
Hmm.
I was reviewing at the same time, so they kind of blend together for me.
Yeah.
Um, like especially since Pablo Schreiber is in both. Um, but I think one of my criticisms of that show, of one of those shows, was like I didn't feel any of the voice in some of the
Mm.
episodes. I'm like, I that's something critical you need that, or at least for me, that I
Yeah.
need to be like, okay, yes, this is a TV director, but how can I tell it's that person? No,
Right.
they have a tone, the way they do things. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's super
It's
important.
an interesting fine line because some gigs like projects they hire you to do your sound, and
Mhm.
some projects they have a very specific idea of what they want, so you can't just go be I'm the featured artist, because your goal at the end of the day is to represent the film the best way you can be.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a pretty cool compliment to be a really cool, like a chameleon, where you do a score that is so drastically different than the other score that the audience won't even believe it's the same person that writes that. How cool.
Huh.
um yeah, I don't know,
Interesting.
I like it, but I understand what you're saying with, like, the artistry and all that.
Yeah, because it's like for the longest time, I was I forget what it was, um, but when you're listening to an album, say
Mm,
a band you've been listening to for years,
yeah.
it's always nice to be like, oh, hey, they're trying something new.
Yeah.
But then you also want that same kind of like
Right.
flavor. It's like, yeah, I want the vanilla ice cream, but I also maybe want to try the coffee ice cream over here.
Yeah.
Um, so it is kind of a delicate balance too. I,
Yeah.
and I and I think if you're doing vanilla all the time, I think it's like, okay, but I've had 40 pounds of vanilla ice cream. It's not good for me anymore. I've just been
True.
making the same thing. Anyways,
Right.
um, I just want to ask what other tidbits, maybe I didn't get to them. Can you tell me about the composition process of this movie or anything else you want to tell me about the movie
Sure.
or docu short?
So we actually utilized the pandemic to our advantage because our deadline was pretty loose. So we ended up doing something a little bit not normal. Usually for composers, you get the rough cut or a semi-locked cut, and then you start writing to the picture directly. Because we had extra time, then we decided to just write sketches of the music while they were still editing the film. So Maya and I came up with like, I think it was 4 or 5 different emotions that we wanted to have themes for. So I started sketching based on the descriptions she would give me or the reference music that she sent me. And I gave her a lot of music as options to see what is the direction we should go for. And then she sent the tracks that she liked to the editor, or maybe she and the editor picked it together. I'm not really sure what was that process. But the editor put it to the picture as he was editing the film, which is actually pretty cool because they already had the concept in mind as you're editing. So then once we had all of we call it the sketch tracks, once we had that complete, I took a break, they edited, and then they sent me a few weeks or a month, I don't remember. After that, they sent me the rough cut with for the music that I had already wrote. But then I had to go back in and open it up and kind of hone in on the concept and the music itself, make sure it's locked. And then we had a lot of back and forth and like, how can we try and make it better and better? What sounds should we use? What melodies? There was a lot of back and forth. It was a very, very collaborative process. I think Maya and I probably had a Zoom meeting every week or every other week just to talk about the music and sound. And that took on and off like a few months of work.
That makes sense. You know, I hear about like people like Michael Giacchino. I don't know how to say his last name.
Giacchino.
And he's like, I'm going in the recording booth for Spider-Man Homecoming or something like that. And it's like, I check the date and it's like 30 days before the film comes out. And I'm like, you absolute machine. How in the world did you do that?
Right. There are films that the schedule is tighter and you just have to figure it out. We had a lot of fun with like a pretty loose schedule, which is very rare. And I think that's why we decided to just go for it. You know, we have the opportunity. Let's just do it. Yeah.
But Amit, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking so much time and just thank you so much. Great talking to you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to my interview with Amit Cohen, the composer of Dreamlife of Georgie Stone. And thank you to my patrons, Thomas Stoneham Judge, Joseph Davis, Shane Conto, David Walters, and Beulah, and Matthew Simpson for supporting Awesome B Media on Patreon. If you can spare a few bucks, go to my Patreon at patreon.com/awesomebmedia. I'll also have a link to my Patreon in the links below, as well as all my social media. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.